Hey there, welcome to this episode of Author Success Show. The special guest we have today is Misty Lynch. Misty is the author of the newly launched book, Demystifying Money. She is a certified financial planner who helps high achieving women and families handle their finances with confidence using investment management, financial planning, and coaching strategies that meet their needs. She hosts the unscripted reality show HEARTBROKE and the weekly podcast, Demystifying Money. She's a personal finance expert and a resource for media outlets, including the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, CNBC, CNN, and so many more. Investopedia named her one of the top 100 financial advisors in 2021, and US News and World Report named her one of the 9 women in finance to follow. Hey, Misty, welcome to Author Success Show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today.
It's my pleasure, Misty. This podcast becomes, it's a lot more exciting for me to have our own clients on the show, Misty. So you are one of our favorite clients. So thank you so much once again.
Oh yeah, no problem. I've loved working with your team. It's been a new experience for me, something I definitely haven't done before. So it was great. It was great to work with somebody else and to get the help from you guys, the experts on this.
Sure. So let's get started from the very beginning, Misty. At what point of time did you realize that you wanted to help people with their finances?
Oh my gosh. Well, I've always been curious about money. And I think that, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, even in college or when I was young, I knew I wanted to make a lot of it. I wanted to have a different financial situation than I'd grown up in. My parents were, self-employed. My mom, she got some part-time jobs to help out when, business was slow for my father. And it was just always a little bit stressful. There was never really more than enough ever. I can't say we went without. I mean, my parents worked very hard, but I started to realize that being intelligent and working hard didn't necessarily mean financial success at all. And a lot of my family members were very hardworking people who always had jobs and always were doing things, but it just never felt like they were always working for their money. Their money was never working for them, or they never really invested any of it. And so I got very curious about it at a pretty young age to figure out why was it different for some people than others? How did families hold on to wealth? How did they actually create it? And I started to kind of after college, I started working in the finance industry and insurance and then in compliance. And but I really wanted to eventually start working with people to kind of help them through this process, because I realized that most people don't have a clue how to do this.
Right. Is that when you got your certification as a financial planner?
Yeah, and I became a certified financial planner in 2011, and I was still working in a corporate job because I was afraid of self-employment. I'd seen what it was actually like. Growing up, I didn't just see the having all the free time and flexibility, which we did have. But I saw how difficult it was to actually not know when you were going to get paid next. And so I went to work for corporate, a big company where I had a salary, and, I liked it, but I think there was still this part of me that wanted to be self-employed, because I did see the good parts too, and as I became, a mother, and I valued my time and being able to do business the way I actually wanted to. But it did take me quite a while to leave corporate, where I was a certified financial planner, but I wasn't using it. It was just a designation that I had, and I've been a person that was very good at passing tests and trying to get all the degrees to prove that I was good enough to work with people. But it really just, it took some time for me to actually do that. So I've been working with clients, for the past, probably the past 5 years now, which it's been wonderful.
So it's actually quite a difficult task for people who are in very good jobs to quit it and start something on their own. So how did you actually make that final plunge?
I think that I'd realized that I'd gone just about as far as I was going to get. I was in a position where I'd applied for a promotion. The person I'd been working under for years was retiring, and they gave it to a guy from the outside who had a pretty similar resume than me.
Hmm.
And I I knew I could stay, but I felt like this might be the glass ceiling that I bumped up against. And I don't think that I would have been able to work very hard for this person, even though he was fine. It was nothing to do with him. He was qualified as well. Um, I just kind of hit a tipping point where I didn't want to be there anymore, and I felt like it was worth it to give, to go in a different direction and give it a try.
Right. Sometimes these frustrating experiences can actually be a blessing in the long run
Mhm.
when you look
Right, and
back at it.
actually the company was acquired the year later, and that person lost his job. So did a lot of people, which is just one of those things that corporate and it feels safe, it feels consistent, and that
Mm,
it's going to be there. But I've seen, whether it's self-employment or you're working for somebody else, like you really are responsible for building that security yourself. Like there's
yeah,
really not anywhere. And I think a lot of people have felt that over the past 2 years, especially with pandemic and a lot of changes at work, that like there really is no like safe bet. You kind of just have to
true.
figure out what works best for you. And for me, that was the push to move. But I think it would have come in one form or another eventually.
Yeah. So even in your field of financial planning, Misty, there are
Mhm.
so many people out there who do similar things.
Yeah.
So, but I know that your approach is very different, and I would
Mhm.
love you to share that with our audience. How do you look at financial planning, and uh, who would be your ideal clients that you work with?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I do think that there's a lot of confusion about what like financial planners actually do, and so I would say that my approach is very specific to the clients that I work with. But um, a lot of times in traditional finance, we're focused on numbers and returns and very tactical, information. How much do you make? How much do you spend? Where are the expenses? Where can we cut? And things like that. Where I felt like most of my clients were actually talking to me more about certain things that they found it easier to talk about the things they wanted out of life than how much money they wanted to have. And so I kind of started to focus, and I even got, certified as a life coach because there was a lot of stress around money. When there was big moves happening with their money, a new job, an inheritance, it also meant like somebody had passed away or they were quitting like going through something very stressful. So just looking at the numbers um it felt like I was missing part of the equation. So a lot of times with my clients, what I do is I kind of try to figure out how they think and feel about money,
Mm-hmm.
what they actually want to do with their lives, and then we use the money as kind of a tool to figure out how to get there and how to when we can get there, or what we need to do to make things, move faster or to hit a certain goal. But I focus less on the returns and what I can provide as far as, I do manage investments, and
Mm,
um, I do think it's very important for people to invest their money. But I found there's a lot of aversion to actually, talking about that. Because a lot of my clients who are typically, I usually I work with a lot of women. I work with a lot of couples where somebody is self-employed or there's some sort of irregular
mm,
income, where there's a lot of confusion and stress, and they might be very, very educated and
yeah.
good at what they do, but feel very insecure when it comes to money. And I try to help them, you know, focus on the things that will bring in money, keep them, supported, and let them do the things they want to do without
Mm,
always making it about just about the dollars and those types of
yeah.
things.
Yeah, I can totally understand the concept that money is just this tool to
Yeah.
help us achieve what we want in life. And I think, Misty, you're actually helping people do so many other things as well. Like, for example, by helping them achieve their money goals, uh, they probably are doing things differently in their life, which is also impacting their relationship and health and everything else also positively.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are afraid, like they learn things about money, like you shouldn't, some people feel very bad about spending it. Some people feel really scared about investing it. Some people don't even like talking about it because it makes them feel bad, or they just don't think it's something you should care about. And you need it, it is definitely a tool. It's kind of like the way people, you can't stop eating or stop, like you have to find a way to have a healthy relationship with your money. And a lot of people were kind of their own worst enemy when it comes to, you know, not taking very good care of it. And so kind of figuring out like what their initial thoughts and feelings about money were, because if they thought it was bad or they thought it was the root of all evil, they're not going to want more of it, or they're
Yeah.
not going to attract more of it. And so trying to help figure out what the issue is now, because most of my clients, they want something to change or they wouldn't come to me.
Yeah.
And just trying to figure out what they actually would like to do with it, and to show them that they can have a bigger impact if they really understand what they're doing with what they make.
Awesome. So now that your book is finally published, Misty, I'm curious to know, when did this idea of writing a book first happen?
Oh my gosh. I've always been a person who loved books. When I was growing up, like we lived across the street from a library and I spent a lot of time there. Like I mentioned, things were stressful at times and that was a very quiet, peaceful place. I don't know if you've ever like spending time at a library is something that I highly recommend if you're looking to just kind of, and I started reading about money. I didn't have any investors to speak to. I didn't know anything about it. So I really read, it's funny, I read any book that I could find that had the word rich in the title, I think, in the whole library. And I was curious, always curious about other people's thoughts, and books were just kind of just a great way to kind of escape or kind of learn something new. So I always loved to read. And I think that, writing a book was something that I always thought I'd love to do someday. But then as I got more, since after I left corporate, I found that it was interesting that there weren't a lot of people in my field that looked like me or talked like I did about money. And so I felt like even though I was kind of an outlier, definitely more on the woo-woo side of personal finance than most of my counterparts, that there was kind of a place for it.
Yeah.
And so I'd always, I'd realize that I was able to, get quoted in the media and get, be able to speak on podcasts and talk to people. And it made me think that a book could be a really useful one way to get information out to people that maybe were like me and didn't have thousands of dollars to invest. They just maybe had could buy a book or download a book and get that information and kind of use it, because that was, financial literacy is definitely something that I want to help improve if I can. And so a book seemed like a really great way to do it. And also, I think it gives a lot of credibility to, if I know somebody has taken the time to write a book, or they have, gotten, their, I don't know. I always felt to me like I had a certain amount of, stature to it. And I guess that part of it, that might have been something that I've always kind of had in the back of my mind too, that if you want to have a louder voice and you want to be on the panels and you want to be on the shows and you want to be talking to people, having a book out there is a very useful tool to help that happen. And so I thought it was a smart investment. I thought it was a smart move to make. It was also just kind of a dream.
Yeah. No, I really love the fact that a book not just helps the reader, which obviously it does by sharing your stories, but it also helps the author, more than anybody else, because it helps you attract more clients and improve your life also in so many ways.
Right. And I mean, I was working with a firm where we were giving somebody else's book away as, a way to get clients interested in us, because that was, using the investment strategy that we used. And people wanted books. I mean, I think people really, they like, it's rare that I talk to people who, they want to learn more. They want to understand, especially difficult concepts that they feel like maybe if somebody could break it down in a way that they understand it. And so I saw how it was a good lead magnet to give away this book. But I always was like, this isn't even us. And I was like, what if we, and then after leaving that firm, I was thinking, how do I want to attract people? And I was like, what if I could, give them a chapter of my book, or give them, something that in return for their contact information, be able to have them on my radar. And that seemed to be a really great way to provide something of value, and and to hopefully support the business.
So true. I'm so glad that in spite of being a voracious reader all your life, you still felt that you too have a message to share. Because what I've noticed, Misty, is when people read a lot of books, they feel that, oh my God, all the information out there is already published by other people. They've already written about it. So what can I add, to this industry as a new message? But you could see that you are different from the typical financial planners out there. And that's why you were able to clearly differentiate your message and put that in your book, right? So I'm glad that
Yeah,
though you were able to read so many books, you are able to still write your point of view differently.
and I think that's what was very helpful about working with your team, is because if I was doing this on my own, I
Mhm.
might have decided to opt out before I published it, because there are a lot of books out there. There's a lot of experts out there. There's yeah, I mean, there's plenty of reasons why I might think that somebody could do or say this maybe in a little bit better way. But what I did know when I was going through the process and trying to convince myself to keep going was that a lot of the there's a lot of great messages out there, but some of them are for people who are not certified financial planners. They're maybe people who paid off a lot of debt on their own, or people who are not trained in personal finance. And then there's a lot of financial experts that are speaking from maybe a place that that is kind of a little hard to reach for some people
Yeah,
who
not
might be trying to
relatable.
figure it out. And so I felt like, you know what, there's only one you. There's only you. And I think that, like, our perspectives, all of us are different and unique, and nobody is going to have the same experience as me, or quite the same. But I am noticing that there are a lot of people that do have, maybe they're the first person in their family to build wealth,
Hmm.
or maybe they are, maybe they are the first generation, and so they are looking for people maybe who didn't inherit the wealth, who want to show that, like, no, actually you can be pretty systematic about things. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. And I'm in an industry that's made a lot of fortunes by overcomplicating things and keeping it out of the hands of others. And so, I just kind of tried to figure out where that space might be, and convince myself that it might be, maybe someone reading it would think it was useful, and that would be good enough.
Yeah. So the first time when I met you, Misty, I took a look at your website and I was surprised to see that you've written hundreds of blog posts already. So it's a known fact that you're a good writer. So what was actually stopping you from writing your book?
I never thought I was a good writer. There was a long time that I didn't consider myself a writer. I'm still trying to work on considering myself a writer. I've always thought I was a better speaker. And when I saw that somebody had not shopped for, I think, a month, and I remember reading that and thinking, like, I bet I could not shop for an entire year. And I decided to try that experiment as, like, a New Year's resolution in 2019, I believe, 2018, 2019. And I said, to keep me honest, I'm going to write a blog. That'll get me, because a lot of financial advisors, they don't have any, they don't have any content, is one of the things. So they buy content from other people, from other sources. And so I thought I could create content, and just kind of write, about how the process is going of not shopping and changing an overspending habit and things like that. And also then just, like, start to put in, blog articles about different financial topics that I was hearing about from people or thought were interesting. And I said, if I write once a week, then I'll keep myself honest, because I'll just kind of help me commit to the goal and see if other people are reading it. And so I started a blog, not because I thought I was a great writer, but just because I thought that it would help keep me honest with this goal. And I thought that might give me something interesting to speak about, or something I could help coach people on if I was able to actually do it. And so then I just kind of kept up with the blog writing. But then when I remember meeting with you, I'm like, I'm not a writer. I'm not a writer. And you're like, I think I see writing here. But it's funny how much we convince ourselves of certain things.
Yeah.
And we don't question it until we're like, oh, wait, why do I think that? I have all of this stuff that I've written, and I I think it's just funny how often we just believe what we tell ourselves about. And I write about that a lot in the book, about how a lot of people tell themselves that they're terrible with money, or that they're never going to make a lot of it. And they don't really question why.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked this, Misty, is because maybe you did not consider yourself as a writer, but you were writing in the form of blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
And the general perception is that you need a coach to write your book only if you cannot write. But you could write. But then why did you decide to work with our coach so that you could finish the book?
Well, I guess I have a lot, like I meant, I love books, and I like a great, like, there's nothing to me like finishing a great book. Like it's, I've devoured a lot of books on this topic, and then there's usually, some things I'll remember, some things that I'll, think about or highlight or go back to. And so when I thought about writing a book, I didn't want to just take like 100 blog articles and shove them together and try to pass it off as a book. I wanted something that I could feel like somebody could read and maybe get an idea or question some of their beliefs that are kind of holding them back, or learn how to negotiate when they're going to ask for a raise. There's something that they could take from it and go and do. And I didn't know how to publish a book. I didn't know how to do anything besides maybe get the content out on paper. But then I'd really no idea what happened next or how to make it interesting. It seemed like something that could be done, but I just thought it would be better to work with people that actually help get books out there, and make sure that someone else is editing it that's not me, because if it was just me reading something 10 times, I probably would have just hit delete, decided it was no good.
Sure.
So yeah.
So the reason why our coach feels that you've been one of our best clients is because you would do exactly what has been told and what you've committed to do. So do you have a particular process that you followed for writing so that you could stay consistent and finish the manuscript during the week that we decided to finish?
Yeah. No, and I think that's a part of the book. There's a chapter in the book where I talk about time management, because like everybody's busy. But I think if you have bigger goals, you really have to kind of back into how you're going to do that. And so I would block time on my calendar, because if I knew we were meeting on Friday, she would need the chapter by Thursday so she could get a chance to read it. And so every week it was almost like, it was like if I had a boss and my boss was saying that this is due on Wednesday. And so you have to just kind of do things. And when it came time to write, like usually I didn't want to, but it was on the calendar and it had to get done. And I feel like blocking things off in that way has helped me do more than most people. And a lot of people are like, I don't understand how you could get that done. You must have so much on your plate. But I don't feel busy all the time. I don't feel stressed about it, because I usually do exactly what I planned to do. Like even this morning, I woke up at a certain point because I wanted to sit for a little while, think about the book that was going out. I wanted to have coffee. I wanted to be up before the kids. And when my alarm went off, I didn't want to get up, but I did it because I knew the day before that is what I wanted to do. I didn't want to rush into my day and feel distracted on a Monday. So I kind of just sit and plan out what's got to get done this week. And I plan out my free time too. And I don't feel like I should be doing something else when I'm anywhere. And so I broke the book down in the same exact way. And that wasn't a question of it would get done. Like I just knew it would, because I've started to become someone that that people can count on. And I think that's something that a lot of people do. They put their own goals last for everybody else. And this was a big goal of mine. It wasn't my kid's goal. It wasn't my husband's goal or my parents, nobody else. No one else actually cared. If I gave up, I'm sure a lot of people would have understood. There's a family, there's a pandemic, there's all these things. But it was mine. And so I got it done.
Yeah. So after you finished writing the book, Misty, how was the publishing process for you? What did you like best?
I really thought that it was, I thought it was fun to, to see I loved the different covers that your team came up with. I think there was like 3 that I was loved. And then, I was able to get some interest from people who wanted to help me pick one and wanted to be involved. And I thought that, I guess I thought maybe nobody would really care or want to help or whatever, but a lot of people maybe have the same goal of writing a book someday or love books or thought it was just cool to see somebody that they know do something like this. And so I was able to get some people to kind of chime in and give me some good tips, like change the font here. This is hard to read here. Move this down a little bit. And everybody has a different skill. So I'd have people who were photographers with different eyes and editor. It was just fun. And so that was cool. And also, the editing was very helpful because going back and forth a few times, you kind of just block, like it all starts to blend together, but knowing that there was different people looking at certain things and different people saying, like, you know, having the coach say like, no, this is good, this is interesting, or I liked this chapter. And I was able to get those comments while I was doing it and look at them through the editing phase. And then they might pick up like, okay, this is a little redundant here, or we said this already here. Can we reduce the words here? That was just a unique perspective that I don't think, it didn't feel like criticism. It just felt like this is making this better. And when I got to the point afterwards, after a few rounds, I felt like this could be really good, you know, because enough people had kind of had given some really great feedback. So that was a really helpful part of the whole editing and publishing process.
I'm so glad you mentioned the editing too, because some authors are so close to their manuscript that they do not want to distance themselves even after finishing the writing. And they may get offended if somebody, you know, who's not a financial expert, but is an editor, could tell that, you know, this could be written in a different way. They may not take it in the right sense, but then you were totally open to feedback, and that actually helped in improving the overall.
No, there was definitely some times where I was like, no, this is the term, or like, this is what this means, or whatever. There was a lot of other times where I was just like, no, this is really good. Or that's, you know, that's a good point. And I don't like, you know, if I could say something in fewer words and get the message across, then I want to try to do that. People are busy, you know, like, so I thought that was really good. I didn't want it to, I wanted it to be well done. So I kind of was open to all of that, all of the suggestions and feedback. And they were, it wasn't just like, I don't like this or I don't get this. Like, it was pretty thoughtful, like, okay, this is where I see this here, this points to this, and maybe we can, you know, maybe we could skip this part. And it was kind of like, I think I could have said no and it would have been all right. It would have been a discussion. So that was nice. I felt like it was like a team.
Great. So now that, I think by the time this episode will be live, your book will be available. So how does it finally feel, Misty, to be a published author?
Yeah, honestly, I thought I would be like, I was a little nervous yesterday. Like I felt like, what am I doing? But I realized, like, then I remembered that, like, you know, I kind of wrote about this, like, whenever anybody's, you know, leveling up or doing something new, it can feel terrifying. But the other part of me that was like, no, we went through this whole process. This is what I wanted to do for a long time. And a lot of other people helped with it. That's going to, you know, we had lots of different eyes on it, and this could help some people. So it's time to go. But I thought I would be like jumping up and down screaming. And I think I will be maybe at some point. But I think that, you know, it's definitely new, you know, and I'm happy that, you know, I'm, you know, 41 doing something new.
Yeah. No, I'm sure every time you're going to get 1 5-star review on Amazon, you are going to be jumping and dancing, because you have impacted so many lives.
That'll be, I think that'll be good to, you know, to actually see people read it, see if it's been helpful. And then, hopefully get it out there and have people, you know, start to maybe think just a little bit differently about the way they approach their money.
Sure. So for us at Happy Self-Publishing, Misty, our bigger goal is to help authors have a proper author funnel so that it can support their business in the back end. And the author funnel has a lot of different elements. The book is one of them. And then comes all the free offerings that the author can have, which can be like a free download, or it can be your podcast or your blog. And then it's all your easy to buy paid stuff, which could be at a lower price point, and then your premium offerings. So when I teach this to aspiring authors, a lot of them get overwhelmed that, oh my God, should I do all of this at the same time? But in your case, Misty, you already have all of this in place. You have your podcast, you have your blog, you have your coaching, you have your done for you services, and so many other things, and now the book as well. So you have like this well-oiled machine that's going to start working for you going forward. But what would be your message to a person who's already an expert and is probably starting his or her coaching business, but they don't have all of this in place? So what would be your message to them to create this author funnel?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think that, a lot of people probably do have, there's a lot of ways where we could think about business like, oh, I need to have this perfect, I need to have this done, or this type of, website or coaching. And really, it's important to have an idea of how these things are going to work together. I like books. I kind of knew that this would be good in my space. And I think for coaching as well, there's probably a lot of ideas in your head or a lot of things that you could give to sell to somebody for $10, $20. And then they might, even if you put your best stuff out there, even if you put your best stuff out there for free in a podcast, that's not going to make people think like, okay, they don't need to work with you. And I think that's what a lot of people think, like, oh, if I put it out there, no one's going to work with me. When I read something that I love of somebody else's, I usually want more. I usually want to know more. Or I think, what is their paid version?
Yeah.
This is what I'm getting just for free. What would they help me with if they actually created a financial plan for me? How would they, treat my money if this is what's out there for a lower price point? And so I think that if you're a coach and you're kind of afraid of that, I think that it's almost the opposite. I think people usually, they want to make smart decisions. They want to do something. And I think a lot of people are willing to invest in themselves, but they really usually have to have a lot of reasons why to part with their money. And I think proving that, you offer value and that you know what you're talking about, then you can bring those clients on one-on-one or in a group program or whatever it is. But I think you have to put a lot out there at a very accessible price, so people can learn that and start to believe it, because people don't want to be sold. They want to come to the right decision on their own. And I think that can be really helpful.
Sure. So don't be afraid to give away your best stuff for free, because people who really value it will not mind paying and having more access to you.
Yeah. And I think books are a great way for that. I mean, there's some people that I continue to follow, and I always will look at their advice and I'll always read their books, whatever they come out with or whatever their next thing is. I'm usually there for it. But usually that introduction is usually, it's hard to just start at the top or your top tier offer. I think it's good to kind of have those things that people can even download or, not have to even reach out to you to buy and start learning. So that's where the books and podcasts and things like that can be really, really helpful.
Sure. So looking at the way you did it, Misty, would you recommend people follow the same order? Like what I assume is you would have probably started your coaching first and then created your podcast and blog and then the book. Is that the right approach, or people can do it in any other order as well?
Yeah, it can go in a lot of ways. I was still working in corporate when I started my blog. I wasn't even an advisor yet who wanted content. I just knew when I was that person, I'd be happy that I had this stuff. So you don't have to be at a perfect point in your career or, have it all figured out. But I think if you can kind of start to picture what you want things to look like, I was picturing myself, speaking in front of lots of people at a women's and I was thinking what would those people that got there, what did they do? And a lot of them had books, a lot of them had programs or whatever. So if you, whatever field you're in, if you kind of can see people that are kind of where you're at, maybe a few levels ahead, kind of back into some of the work that they might have done to get there, it starts to kind of give you a little bit of a roadmap, because a lot of times you're like, oh, they must be so lucky, or they had it, all planned out for them. And most people don't. So usually you can kind of back into that. So I don't think there is a perfect path. I think there's some people that maybe were just writers, and then all of a sudden people were clamoring for more of their one-on-one attention, and they maybe never planned to at all. Or, some people probably have everything figured out and write a book just because they want to. Because it's something good to have. So where I build it in as part of the funnel that I think I'll use to kind of bring people in the door, I think it's a cool option for anybody, really.
Yeah, I think that's a really sensible. That's a sensible way to look at it, because no two people are the same. So some people may start with their coaching, some will start with their blog or podcast. And for some people, it could be the book first and everything else
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I'm sure there's probably a lot of people that, can reach the masses, and write and maybe prefer it that way. Or maybe never want to speak on a podcast or never want,
Yeah.
maybe that's the part of being an author that freaks them out, is having to talk about it. There might be other people that love it. So it's just kind of like if it's like a piece of the puzzle that works for you.
Yeah. And I
I don't
think
think
that's
it's
the best part of being an entrepreneur, right? You get to decide what you want to do.
right. Yeah, no. And I think it does have a certain level. I don't know. I think there's something special about books. I always have. So it's exciting.
Right. So, Misty, thank you so much. I mean, I loved all the things that you shared today. Where can people find out more about you and your work and your book?
Sure. So the easiest way to reach me would probably just be to head over to mistylynch.com. That's one of the great things about having a unique name. Say, just my name. So that's where you can, find the book, podcast episodes, and then links to, the other services that I offer, like coaching and investment management and planning. So it's all there. Or you could follow me on social media at Misty Lynch CFP.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Misty, once again for coming on Author
Thank you.
Success
And
Show.
thank you and your team. It's just it's great to know there's resources out there. And so if you're feeling lost or you're like, I'd love to do this, but I don't know how, there's usually people that know how to do it. And so that was what was great about stumbling onto your team and being like, yes, those are the people I need. Perfect.
Thank you so much.